Now, do you want a Werther's original?
I'd have one, yeah. Considering they are mine.
They're not. They're mine.
Are they?
They're addressed to me from our pal Christy.
Yeah. Not the Christy from living up in Dubai. Another.
But I did notice from his note, and much appreciated, they're for you and I. So I'm going to have to count them out and share them with you.
Yeah. It does kind of...
really annoying.
I do like them, but they do kind of age us, do they? The Werther's original.
They're my favourites.
I'm sure they're not being popular amongst the hip and trendy 20-year-olds, are they?
Probably not, but I'm going to count them out. I'm going to go one for you, one for me.
They really are not a Generation Z sweet.
But I mean, given I've just lost my phone behind myself and had to send off alerts and everything.
Yeah.
Very, very annoying getting older, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't know. I'm significantly younger than you.
You bloody well would know. You certainly would. Now, here we are.
Yeah.
And we're going to have talk about something.
See, now look, you're really having a senior moment today.
I was trying to type.
Yeah. Well, would you not have prepared before in advance of the podcast? You wouldn't have to type.
I should have. No, I was actually going to say, we're going to talk about a guy called Ian Mad Dog Maloney, as opposed to Ian Mad Dog Malini, who's our producer.
Arguably not Mad Dog Malini, is he? He might not be.
But it's just so close you can't help yourself.
Quite almost Ian Gentle Dog.
Yeah.
Malini, I would say, would be more accurate. I mean, there have been a few Mad Dogs, of course.
There has been a few. Well, there's obviously Johnny Mad Dog Adair.
Yeah, which I mean, it's great for headlines for newspapers.
Mad Dog.
Yeah.
Where did that all come from?
Well, I suppose, it's a saying, isn't it? About being mad dog. You have to put a mad dog down or whatever. I don't know where the name comes from. I mean, it is a blessing for headline writers because we have had, when the Queen died, for example, we had Sad Dog Adair.
Oh, really?
He put out a statement about being upset by the.
And of course, didn't he call his son,
I don't know if
Mad Pup or something.
Well, the pup. Yeah, his son was referred to as Mad Pup. He died actually very tragically, and then his wife at the time was referred.
Don't say it.
Can I not?
Well, if you want to get cancelled, you go right ahead.
No. It's an matter of historic.
Okay,
record.
go on.
But she was referred to
by who?
I'd say lowly gutter press.
Yeah.
As Mad Bitch.
Yeah.
Because she was obviously married to Mad Dog.
Yeah. Where is she?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I would be worried if I were to come in, and sometimes the women can be
a gentle soul. But Ian Mad Dog
Maloney. Yes. And actually he's trying to leave that moniker behind, isn't he? Because of late he has tried to become a poet, and he has sort of tried to put his life straight as such, or certainly he has sort of alluded to that's the way he wants to go. But of course the stuff hanging over him that has been there.
Yeah.
When did this crime occur?
This crime occurred
2022.
Yeah, 2022. But he was sentenced earlier this month, and he got a 10-year sentence, with the final 18 months suspended. So a lengthy sentence for shooting at an occupied house at the time. Now, he picked up the name Mad Dog, which, as I said, a lot of people have been given that nickname, probably because he was regarded as being, as a young man, one of these out of control, violent people with that reputation on the streets. He's from Crumlin, related to some of the major criminal figures in the Crumlin-Drimnah feud.
Is he a cousin of the Thompsons, the Byrnes?
He's a cousin of the Thompsons and the Byrnes, or I think he's a cousin of the Thompsons, and therefore...
Are you sure about that? Are you mixing him up with Owen Scarface O'Connor?
No, he was also a cousin. But Ian Maloney was a cousin of.
And not that it is in any way
No. But
cousin of somebody, but
and of course, but
so many people in that feud were related, weren't they? Like there were so many cousins.
Of course, and there was obviously Liam Brannigan was a cousin as well.
Liam
Rowe was a cousin of the Byrnes
and Freddie.
And then also Dean Howe was also another cousin. So there was a lot of family connections. And then even people like Paddy Doyle, who was at the time his girlfriend was a cousin of Freddie Thompson. So, and that's in a way. And obviously some of them people not involved in crime, but it is a way, family ties in criminality is a very common thing. So having a family tie, and I'm not sure the exact relation of Ian Maloney, but he had family ties in there. And that means those guys are brought through as young men. And Ian Maloney, I think he started off as a driver for Freddie Thompson and others. And although that kind of sounds like a sort of gopher role for organised crime, is actually a very trusted kind of position. That they have to have somebody they can really trust to do that job. But he was, heavily involved in feuding even as a young man in the Crumlin area. It wasn't actually part of the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud, but he was involved in a sort of violent dispute that ultimately there was a lot of shootings, a lot of violence, and he picked up that reputation as somebody that was really, really dangerous.
Now, at one point, there was a guy called Joey O'Brien who was due to give evidence in a case. He would ultimately end up on the witness protection programme, but he was in a takeaway somewhere around Dame Street or near Dame Street, near Christchurch, and opportunistically, Maloney saw him.
Yeah.
And went in, and there was later evidence given how he had attacked him and basically danced on his head.
Yeah, and
in the middle of this takeaway. I mean, it was a very out of control thing to do. No regards for where CCTV was. Who could have witnessed it? He just literally was overcome with that sense of aggression to move on O'Brien, who would later give evidence in cases, much of it not accepted. But nonetheless, he was seen as somebody who had, committed or was about to commit the ultimate sin of gangland, that sort of idea that he was turned rat.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that he got into. He, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other 109 convictions that he has?
Well, I mean, I suppose that was one of the serious convictions, and involved in that attack was other people that would have a very prominent role for many years in crime, including Greg Lynch, who was, I think at the time, had just served a lengthy sentence after being caught with a major shipment of heroin just as an 18-year-old, and he was out of prison. And he would go on to, be a figure very prominent in the distribution of drugs in the South Inner City, and had ties to the Kinahan cartel.
Well, he had, until they decided to turn on him, and he had half his face shot off outside O'Hanlon's Corner pub.
And another guy involved in that attack would be a guy called Jonathan Murray.
Yes.
Who at that point was a friend of Ian Maloney.
You're talking about the attack on O'Brien.
The attack on, yes. Jonathan Murray was also there. And Jonathan Murray would remain in the papers, partly because of his close links to Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor would have brought him on planes to high-powered MMA events, always hanging out with him. And it would always be said, this is Jonathan Murray who has all these convictions. So there was people that involved in that attack that stayed in the papers. But that was only one of Ian Maloney's 109 convictions, as I said. The major, probably his most serious conviction, was for what at that stage was a major armed robbery. I think it was a record raid on a jeweller's, which he received an 11-year sentence, and that put him in prison, where he was again regarded as being involved in a lot of issues behind bars. But other people would say about him that he was quite popular in the prison system, that people kind of found him easy to deal with despite his reputation. However, when he came out after that, I think he came out sort of midway through the Hutch-Kinahan feud, and he was, I suppose, ultimately expected to take up a senior role in the Kinahan cartel because he'd been so associated with them. But ultimately, he seems to have had a series of falling outs with people, including with the Murrays, with Jonathan Murray and his associates. And at the back of this latest conviction was a feud with Jonathan Murray and his brother Andrew Murray. And a lot of it had been played out over social media, the usual stuff of people calling each other rats and all of that stuff. In the middle of all that, whatever had gone wrong with Maloney, he started having goes at various figures, including Bomber Kavanagh, which I remember him putting up a post calling Bomber Kavanagh a rat. He started openly speaking about his life of crime, doing, videos. And in the middle of all of this as well, he launched his career as a poet.
Is that in the middle of it, or does it come in the aftermath of this? Because this shooting on the household, he does talk about and has said to the court that, he's really regretful about this because there was a child in the house and he had 3 children, he said himself. And it was kind of appears to be, or is presented as a moment where he...
Well, I think it was all going on simultaneously. He has this kind of falling out and he starts openly talking about his life and growing up. And in the middle of all that, there's this ongoing feud with the Murrays that goes on for a while. And but ultimately, he does launch this poetry book, and he does seem to have had a road of Damascus moment, and decided that he was going to put all that away from himself and to move on. And so, what's unique about this case, I suppose, and given the fact that he has 109 convictions and he ultimately received an 8.5-year sentence for shooting at a home, that's on the lower side of things, given the seriousness of his criminal past. But it is because because he basically went into a police station and admitted to it.
Yeah.
Unprompted. Now, he may have been a suspect already, but he went in and confessed everything. And that is highly unusual, obviously, particularly for people like Maloney, who've been in and out of the criminal justice system for years. So he did start writing poetry, in the aftermath of this in a more serious way. We published a couple of the poems. You have to.
We published a couple of the poems.
We published quotes from the poem.
You published stories around them.
Yes, about him launching his book.
Actually, it's fair to say that a publisher took a chance on him.
But they did.
If I could find the name of the publisher now, I would give them a shout out, because the publisher has spoken about previously being, or in the beginning, being a little bit sort of nervous or apprehensive about him, but then kind of, deciding that he was firstly worthwhile publishing and secondly sort of worthwhile backing.
Yes.
A psychological report that goes along with this case explains that Maloney had a brother who died when he was 16.
Right. And of course, his brother's death was one of those very high-profile cases. His brother had been in Garda custody. He was, his brother was a teenager at the time, juvenile, and had been kept overnight, not on serious charges or anything or not suspected of anything serious. Had left Garda custody and had ultimately been found dead. And it was certainly a very very high profile at the time, because the Maloney family certainly believed that there was something nefarious had occurred in the garden.
And they had been, the 2 brothers, Ian and his brother, had been camping.
Yeah.
And they returned from camping and he was arrested on this warrant, and then he was obviously found in a laneway near Rathfarnham Garda station. A short time after being released from there, he died in hospital. So Maloney, the report has stated, blamed himself. He blamed the Gardaí and he blamed himself for bringing him on the camping trip in the first place. And he said that actually Michael O'Higgins, senior counsel, told the court that he had a hatred of Gardaí afterwards, and it sort of led him on this path of destruction and into criminality.
Now, there was investigations into that death.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever found. However, the family still have their belief about it. So he went in and made the statement, which is particularly unusual. And that some of that statement was read out at an earlier court hearing. He said to Gardaí, "Not a day passed where I don't regret what I did. This is in relation to shooting at the home. I've no excuse, only remorse. I've been haunted by guilt." He said, this is in a letter to the family, an apology letter. "I made a statement to Gardaí because I couldn't live with myself. The weight of guilt was unbearable." And he went on to say then that I've distanced myself from my past, and writing poetry gives him a sense of purpose, and he no longer wants to be involved in crime.
So Michael O'Higgins, who was representing him, also handed in a number of character references to the court, including one from this publisher. So Maloney had approached them about publishing books of his poetry for a children's charity, so he's not even making money himself. And the who isn't named actually in court said she'd been wary of him at first, but it's since published 3 of his books, right?
Yeah.
And Michael Higgins, his barrister, also read out a letter Maloney had written to the family involved who had been targeted in that house. And he said to them in open court, Maloney said, "I was reckless. I've been haunted by guilt. I made the statement because I couldn't live with myself."
Yeah.
And he was no longer that person. He's done voluntary work here and abroad, apparently. He says, "I've distanced myself from my past. I'm still under pressure. My house has been attacked by people trying to provoke me." But that he has this, done this 360-degree, he says, turnaround.
Yeah.
But he still has, after getting a bloody hefty sentence, hasn't he?
Well, he has gotten a hefty sentence. And of course, it's easy to go into court and say you've reformed. There's no doubt about that. Now he's been in prison on remand for a while, so it will shorten the length of time he has from this point onwards. But look, he certainly sounds sincere in what he says. And
Judge Sarah Berkeley sentencing him said that the most significant mitigating factor was his early plea and his voluntary statement. But she noted that he'd lost his brother 17 years ago, but she also noted that he suffers from uncontrollable anger and was taking illicit substances. So perhaps the will is there maybe to change. And
so this is the complicated bit, I think, for people like Maloney, or others that go on that path. So they have to then they may have good intentions, but the moment comes when somebody puts it up to them, or slags them off, or disrespects them in some way. And at that moment, then they have to learn to be able to control their emotional reaction to it. And that is, I think, a difficult bit. The other bit to it that's people struggle in terms of criminals that operate at that level, I think, is accepting that they won't have access to money and excitement.
No, for sure. But in prison, and we've heard from people before who've gone through it, but there is an offering of anger management courses and therapy. And if Ian Maloney wants to lose his mad dog moniker and maybe move forward in a more positive way in life, there's a lot of things in place in the prison system that could help him do that. Yeah,
they have a program, Alternatives to Violence program, a course, and it is meant to be very, very effective. And that is, I suppose, about people that have that volatility, that may have, and I think this is said about Mad Dog Maloney, that he's kind of a nice guy that you could have an intelligent conversation with, but that something can snap on him. So there is those courses in prison, and they do have quite a good success. But yeah, it's
and he obviously has 3 children himself, and he definitely has told the court that it's his will to sort of turn his back on a life of crime, to be a good parent, I think is what he's saying, and to change his ways. So hopefully that he can use his time behind bars in this case to I suppose, invest in himself.
Yes, and yes, or you'd only wish anybody well who chooses that path in life.
And I'm going to have another Werther's.
One of my Werther's originals, yes.
All right, thanks. I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.